Johnson. We're going to talk to his wife now, Kate, who's on the phone, who's going to tell us what happened after that. Thank you very much for joining us, Kate.
No worries. Thanks for covering our story.
Now, Jamie, your husband, very successful IT engineer, he went for his AstraZeneca jab on the 23rd of April 2021. Tell us what happened after that.
Yeah, so he went to have his vaccine on the 23rd of April. He woke up with a headache on the 3rd of May, which is 10 days after the vaccination. An hour later, he was sick and his speech was impaired. So I called an ambulance where he was taken to our local hospital and diagnosed very quickly with cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, a bleed on the brain and thrombocytopenia. All of the doctors have confirmed that this was vaccine-induced, known as VIT. Yes. And it's on that day that our lives changed forever.
Oh, dear. So he got permanent brain damage, am I right?
Yeah, so he had a turbulent time in hospital, multiple operations, thrombectomy to remove the blood clot, a craniotomy to allow for brain swelling. He was placed into an induced coma. He was in a coma for 4 weeks and 5 days, away from home of myself and our 2 young boys for 124 days. He's had over 299 rehabilitation sessions, specialist appointments since coming home. And with brain injury, your brain can never recover. The damage to his brain is the equivalent of the size of a credit card. So he is amazing, and I'm so inspired by his focus and determination. He gets up every day, he does his rehab, and he tries to be as active in our lives as he can be, but he has significant, forever, permanent brain damage, so he will never work again. He can't drive, he can't look after our children independently, he can't go anywhere on his own, really. He's visually impaired in both of his eyes and his upper right quadrants. He can't process auditory information. He can't read the same, write the same. Every single part of our life is affected. And to be clear, this is confirmed that it was from the vaccine. And because of that, I am part of a group called Vaccine Injured Bereaved UK, and we're made up of individuals and families who have either been severely injured or bereaved as a direct result of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Please give Jamie our best. I'm so sorry about what's happened. It's so terrible. But what are your feelings today, and maybe what are Jamie's feelings now that AstraZeneca has decided to withdraw its COVID jab worldwide? And this is subsequent to that company admitting in legal documents that the COVID jab could cause thrombosis and other side effects and could be responsible for deaths. What are your feelings now AstraZeneca has done this?
Yeah, it's hard. It's great that it's no longer being used in UK, Europe, and soon the rest of the world, because it means that no one else will suffer from this awful adverse reaction. They say it's for commercial reasons. We wonder whether it's because they can no longer say that it's within acceptable safety parameters when there's 445 confirmed cases of VIT, 81 of these are fatal, and of all the 163 people who have been awarded VDPS, nearly all of those are for the AstraZeneca vaccine for things like Guillain-Barré syndrome, vasculitis. People in our group, although we're part of the legal action, there are people in our group who, at the moment, there is no route to justice.
And do you feel, Kate, I don't know if you had the jab as well, do you feel that you were cajoled into it, strong-armed into it by a government that seemed to have some kind of messianic mission to get every person in this country vaccinated? And if you said no, you were demonised as some sort of enemy of society. You remember all those adverts of people with red eyes and oxygen masks on. If you don't get the jab, you'll end up like this. Did you feel that you were psychologically cajoled into these vaccines?
Jamie thought he was doing the right thing to protect our relatives who are elder or vulnerable. He was fit and healthy. We had a good life. We were young, happily married with 2 children, living what was our planned dream, and that's all been taken away. So hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? I think a lot of people did it because...
Well, we were told, Kate, weren't we, that this was the community inspired thing to do. This was good for the country. You were helping your nation. You were helping the world. So there was all that psychological pressure to do the right thing. And then, of course, there are all those adverts on the telly and station walls and trains and everything. You know, those pictures of people dying from COVID. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, the vaccine in principle wasn't a good idea if it had worked, if it had got rid of COVID. But I do think the methods the government used to try to persuade us to get that jab were unacceptable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I guess what we've always been trying to find out is what is an acceptable safety profile. In other countries, one presentation of this condition and others, they paused it because there were other alternatives. Other people in the UK, if we had acted sooner, wouldn't be where my husband are or would still be alive. That is a fact, and that is very difficult. No one will answer to us what is an accepted safety profile. The second thing is always using this word rare. For our group, when we speak daily, it's not rare in our lives. It's 3 years on, it is still here, it was still a problem. And the vaccine damage payment scheme, if they think it was rare and is going to be such a small amount of people, this scheme should be fit for purpose. So far, 303 people have been told that their injury has been caused by the vaccine, but they are not disabled enough. Less than 60%. 45 of these people are within the 40 to 59% disabled category. So they are told that, confirmed by an independent medical body, that their life-changing condition has been caused by the vaccine, but they are not 60% disabled, so they cannot go anywhere. Yeah, well, no individual or organisation should be above the law.
I agree with you. Just to let you know that there's
many of these people to seek justice. We are in that group, and we hope to shine a light that this has to change, and there has to be accountability by Big Pharma when it goes wrong. AstraZeneca made billions of pounds. They are market capitalisation of 170 billion, the second largest publicly listed company. Their CEO made 18 million last year. To them, it is pennies. To our life, people are relying on food banks. People are at risk of losing their houses because they did what they were told were the right thing.
Exactly. Now, listen, Kate, I'm with my colleague Isabella Oakeshott, who's very energised by this discussion, and she'd like to ask you a question.
Yeah. Hi, Kate. I'm so sorry to hear what happened with you. I mean, the reason I feel so strongly about this is because I, along with a handful of other journalists at the time, tried to give an alternative point of view about the potential dangers of the way the government was handling this, and we all found it so difficult to speak out. You know, I was basically not on the BBC for the entire duration of the pandemic because I was giving awkward opinions. And I was interested from your perspective how hard it has been, how long it has taken you to get anybody to listen to your story, because I imagine when this first happened, it was really felt like it was being hushed up and it was hard to get anybody to listen. It was. It still is. We still always have to say we are not anti-vaccine to even get, we can't be. Everyone in our group is injured. Yeah. It's people like Charlotte Wright, whose husband Stephen Wright, Dr. Stephen Wright, died. She stood on the streets and told people it's her who's given me and others in our group the bravery to stand up and talk. And he was one of the first that died from this vaccine. Yes. There's others. Lisa Shaw, she also died from the vaccine. She's not currently in the litigation group. So as VIB UK, our main goal for 3 years, with very little engagement from the government, is lobbying them to seek fair compensation for those injured. And it is only fair that you should be compensated, because everybody was basically pushed into having this thing. You know, we were, in some cases, health and social care workers were actually threatened with losing their job.
Yeah. And I think vaccination relies on the social pact, doesn't it? People get vaccinated for the good of society.
Yeah, that's what we were told. Kate, have you and Jamie received any compensation?
No, they haven't.
No, so we have got the vaccine damage payment scheme of £120,000. Okay. But both of us have lost our jobs. The average salary in the UK is £30,000. This happened 3 years ago. So for 3 years, we've had no income from both of us. We had good jobs. Our house represented the job that we had, like most people. We're now at risk of, when we have to remortgage, losing that, because Jamie can't work again. I can't work in the same capacity because he has had, like I said, 299 appointments. I'm spending time lobbying the government, looking after our children and caring for Jamie. So I cannot work in the same capacity. and he will not be able to work in paid employment again.
Well, I mean, it's just awful, and thank you so much for your campaign, and please do keep going, because it does need people like you, and I imagine it must feel desperate on many days, given the full extent of what you've lost, and the irony that we were told that you have to have this for social reasons to protect others. We now know that actually it didn't have very much effect, if any, on transmission of the virus. So there was actually no social reason to have it. You might have wanted to have it to protect yourself, but it didn't actually impact on others.
Yeah. One last thing, if
please
I can.
Please go for it. Yeah.
I'd just like to add is that, you know, we've been trying to get the Department of Health and Social Care, Victoria Atkins, to speak to us. It's only this week that she's confirmed a review of the VDPS.
Yeah, she has,
We're very keen to be part of that, and we haven't heard from her or her team yet, either for that meeting, which she said on the radio we could have with herself or a junior, or to be involved in this. We want to know, what does reviewing it look like? What happens if there's a general election? How will the review make sure it reflects what needs to be? There are other schemes, which is in our campaign document, around the world that do better. This shouldn't come from the taxpayer. It should come from the big pharma who make billions of pounds. There should be a levy. There is existing schemes that we've got all the data on, and we're happy to sit with them and share. Many of us just want a conversation. Many of us want an apology and an acknowledgement that it happened. Fair compensation, because the VDPS represents a fraction of what financial
absolutely.
And justice for others, because it's not just fit. There are other conditions, GBS, vasculitis, and others that are currently not included in any kind of future litigation.
By the way, Kate,
the light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you probably knew this fact, but 163 people have received compensation from the vaccine damage scheme. Claims against the vaccine damage scheme have soared to 11,000. Now, we don't know the veracity of all of those claims, but as you say, this kind of extremely rare claim thing, I mean, it is rare, but perhaps less than the authorities would like us to believe.
There's 11,000 people who have spent the time of filling that in. It's a two-phase process. First of all, you have to prove causation. Second, you have to think you're 60% disabled, and then that has to be proven by this independent medical people. So there's 11,000 people out there who think that is the case for them, and that needs to be looked into. And the people who below that 60%, one lady in our group is at 59%, which means she is not entitled to the VDPS. That's outrageous. That's life-changing. 20% disablement is life-changing if it's your life. And we just want to sit with the government and AstraZeneca if they would, but for 3 years no one wants to, other than very few MPs who have helped us. So Christopher Chope, my MP, Sir Jeremy Wright, Aaron Bell, there are a handful out there helping us, which we are grateful for, but many, including the Labour Party, will not talk to us about this. And that's
listen, Kate, thank you so much for talking to us. As I say, our best regards to Jamie and your kids, and let's keep in touch. We'll try and get Victoria Atkins to listen to you. Thank you so much. That's Kate Scott.